planning the agenda and sharpening the attacks. The politicians are warming up. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's the late summer preview. In 18 days, the House of Commons will be back in action, and for the Liberals and the Conservatives, it's a time to hone their messages and make their priorities known. The Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has just wrapped up his latest trip to Europe. He went to Ukraine, Poland, Germany, and Latvia. And while in Latvia, where the Canadian Forces has its largest overseas deployment, the Prime Minister announced another 3-year extension of that mission and outlined his plans to dramatically ramp up spending on national defense.
Along with our NATO allies, we committed to NATO's new defense pledge of investing 5% of our annual GDP in the next decade. For Canada, this will represent a quadrupling of our defense expenditures in cash terms by the end of this decade. We're making this year alone additional investments of $9 billion. And we're working with urgency and determination to increase our defense capabilities to meet the threats that are growing in the world.
Prime Minister Carney didn't take questions from news reporters. His energy minister did, though, Tim Hodgson. Hodgson has been talking up Canada's critical minerals industry to his European counterparts, and in a shift from the Justin Trudeau years, has been promoting a business case for Canadian LNG exports to Europe.
We heard loud and clear from German LNG buyers and LNG users is they believe there is demand and they want to buy our products. What we heard very clearly from a number of German LNG buyers and users and from the German government is while they believe natural gas is a transition fuel, what they have come to realize over the last several years, given the geopolitical uncertainty, given the rapidly increasing demand for electricity, partially driven by the AI revolution, is that they will need more of that transition fuel than they thought a few years ago. They will need materially more than they thought a few years ago, and they will need it for longer than they believed a few years ago. That was a message we heard consistently from German buyers of LNG and users of LNG and from the German government.
When asked if former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was wrong, saying there was no business case for Canadian LNG exports to Europe, Hodgson didn't throw Mr. Trudeau under the bus, but did say the Carney government is more focused on the realities of the day.
And I would say the realities today are quite different than they were 2 or 3 years ago. My job as the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources is to deal with the reality today, to develop our natural resources in a responsible way, consistent with First Nations. And if there are buyers who express an interest in that, to try and make that happen. That creates jobs for Canadians. That uses Canadian steel and aluminum, which are under threat from tariffs from the United States. That creates significant revenues for provinces and the federal government to fund the programs that Canadians expect from their government. That shows the world that Canada can be a producer of the lowest carbon intensity transition fuels the world needs and wants.
Minister Hodgson will be in charge of what the Carney government has called projects in the national interest. Those are projects Prime Minister Carney has said he'd like to get going within the next 2 years. But there's some dispute over pipelines. There's already TMX, the Trans Mountain expansion built by the Trudeau government after the private sector developer abandoned the project. The CEO of Trans Mountain says that pipeline should be operating at full capacity before any new pipelines are approved. It's operating at 85% capacity right now. Hodgson said getting Trans Mountain up to 100% capacity, though, isn't a project in the national interest.
The optimization is something that I don't think that's a project of national interest. So I'm not going to jump in front of that. If there's a case to be made for optimization, they will make that case, and we'll consider it through the normal course.
While the Prime Minister and his Energy Minister promote their priorities, Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative Party leader, is warming up for his return to the House of Commons. He's been touring Atlantic Canada. He was in Charlottetown, PEI this week, back at a gas station, back talking about what he calls the Carbon Tax 2.0.
Mark Carney is bringing back the carbon tax to Carbon Tax 2.0. He calls it the Clean Fuel Standard. Clean fuel regulations. According to the parliamentary budget officer, it will add 17 cents a liter to your gas. What did the last carbon tax add to your gas? 17 cents a liter. The new tax is starting to look a lot like the old tax. And Mark Carney thinks no one will notice. Well, Conservatives have noticed, and that is why we are announcing today that we are making it a priority to boost take-home pay and reverse the Liberal cost of living crisis by opposing Mark Carney's Carbon Tax 2.0. We want to axe all carbon taxes for good, for real, for everyone, forever. We want to increase your purchasing power because we know it's not just gas and diesel. Everything that comes in a truck will be more expensive when you tax fuel. And if you got it, a truck bought it.
As for the NDP, that party is preparing to find a new leader after Jagmeet Singh announced his departure after this year's federal election that saw him lose in his own riding. There's a news report today that says two hopefuls are about to enter the race: Heather McPherson, an MP from the Edmonton area, and Avi Lewis, who has a long history with the NDP. His father once led the Ontario NDP. His grandfather was a former leader of the federal NDP. The NDP will pick its next leader in late March of next year. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
on News Radio.
Well, he's my friend on the right side of things. Michael Taube is a syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper in cool, rainy Toronto today. How are you?
Yeah, that it is. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well in Ottawa.
We are very well. You're my friend on the right side of things, but we're going to talk about the left wing today with Michael Taube. We are not New Democrats by any measure, but I would like to know what you think about what's being reported about potential NDP leadership candidates. You have Heather McPherson, who's an MP from Edmonton, Strathcona, and Avi Lewis, who's maybe the closest thing there is next to the Leightons to NDP royalty, both his father and grandfather with leadership roles in the NDP. David and Stephen married to Naomi Klein, co-author of the LEAP Manifesto. I'll never forget that back in 2015, credited with kind of tanking Tom Mulcair's election campaign in that federal election. There's a school of thought that thinks the NDP needs to be more moderate, Michael, maybe get back to its labor roots. I do not view these two, in my own opinion, as moderates. They're more from the activist left. What direction do you think the NDP would take under either of these leadership hopefuls?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to the late Jack Layton, he did actually have family members who had progressive conservative roots. So he was kind of a mixture. But of the names that you've mentioned and the NDP as it currently stands, yeah, I mean, you're looking at an organization that is already far to the left and could go even further depending on who runs and based on a couple of the names that you've mentioned, being Heather McPherson and Avi Lewis. I wrote about the impending leadership race, which will happen at some point next year. I wrote about it just last month in July. And one of the interesting things I discovered at the time, and I just pulled it up, was that there was a research company poll that was asked of respondents about what their favorable and unfavorable opinions of potential NDP leadership candidates were. And there were a number of other people who were mentioned as well. Ruth Ellen Brosseau, who some of the listeners may remember was a former NDP MP and House Leader for the party. Jenny Kwan, who's currently an MP, was mentioned. Former Vancouver Mayor and former MP Kennedy Stewart was mentioned, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I mean, obviously they had all different sorts of numbers with most of them because it's just sort of a melting pot at this stage. Nobody was really breaking out of the pack. I mean, you're looking at favorability ratings. Brosseau had 18%, Kwan had 17%, McPherson 16%, et cetera, et cetera. But here was the interesting part about it, and this is why I'm bringing it up. So every single potential NDP leadership candidate, as I wrote last month, scored above 50% when it came to this response. I don't know who this person is. That means not even half the people running actually knew who the candidates were. That includes well-known names, and I think Avi Lewis certainly would count in that category, to less notable names. No one. So already they're off to a terrible start. And here's the problem. The pool of potential candidates, as I think we both know, Rob, and many of the listeners do, is very poor right now. The NDP is sitting in some polls in the single digits. A recent poll actually showed them around 7% not too long ago. And I had not seen them above 10% for a while. And ever since the last federal election, even before then, they have really basically gone to a period of oblivion. They don't stand for very much. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have high-profile names. They were broke for a period of time. They've been devoid of political ideas for a long time because it's certainly in the Liberals' case under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the current Prime Minister Mark Carney, they swiped from them. There's just not a lot there, which means that the talent pool of potential leadership candidates is also very poor. And it means that in the end, ultimately, if the NDP chooses to go even further left, and thus far anyone who's declared their interest in candidacy would be on that side, I mean, the route to oblivion, which, as I said, they're pretty close to right now, could be even closer at the end of it.
So you think it would be a mistake for this party to move even further to the left?
I think it would be a huge mistake if you want to be fair, but at the same point, I don't know how we really become distinctive because the Liberals have also moved quite to the left as well under Trudeau and Carney. It's a real problem.
Okay. Look, when we come back, I mean, that's not the only left-wing story in our politics these days. We're going to look south of the border and talk about the person who is widely considered to be the front runner in the mayor's race in New York City, which is a big job being the mayor of New York City. Mandani is his name. 33 years old and a self-described democratic socialist. We'll ask Michael about the Mandani effect when we come back. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Back with syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Michael Taube is with us, as he is every Thursday. So there's an old line in U.S. politics that the second hardest job in the United States is being the mayor of New York City.
Right.
And it looks like New York City's about to make a hard left turn. They're having their local election later this fall. And Zohran Mandani, 33 years old, member of the city council, and a self-described democratic socialist, is promising all kinds of free stuff: free childcare, free transit, rent freezes, government-subsidized grocery stores. Love that. Government-subsidized grocery stores. Supported defund the police, all the fashionable left-wing causes that would be paid for by raising taxes on the rich. He is the front-runner, the clear front-runner, to be the next mayor of New York City. What do you think of that?
Yes, other than a couple of very small polls which are showing some movement, he is the clear front runner in all the major polls. And it's not hyperbole. I know people are going to say, oh, you just call everyone you dislike far left. No, he is. He really is. It's not just that he calls himself a democratic socialist, Rob. He actually belongs to the New York chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. This is a hardcore far left-wing guy. And you've talked about some of the issues that he believes in. And if you put in his commentary about, say, Israel during October 7th and his support of Gaza, and the fact that there's a genocide going on there. And you put in his far left ideas about politics and economics. The fact that he has said that he doesn't really see that there's a need to have billionaires in the United States, which means that he wants to limit the amount of money, not just the billionaires make, but wealthy people as well, because obviously it doesn't just refer to a fraction, it's the whole amount. This is a guy who, as you said, government-run, publicly subsidized grocery stores. He's really talked about this. And yes, people in the media have questioned him, and they've certainly talked about, issues with him. But on the other hand, they've allowed him to sort of carry on with lines like this. Now, here's one that I actually wrote. I've written a couple of things on. Here's one I wrote for my Troy Media syndicated column. So there was a 2021 speech to a Young Democratic Socialists of America conference, just in case you're still doubting that there's any connection between Zohran Mamdani and the Democratic Socialists. So they talked about issues that he firmly believes in, and one of them was boycotts, divestments, and sanctions against Israel, but also he championed something called, quote unquote, the end goal of seizing the means of production, end quote. As I said, right. That may be a democratic socialist, they may agree with that, but that's from the communist playbook. That's exactly what Marx and others called for. Now, interestingly, I found some comments from a Brooklyn councilwoman whose name is Inna Vernikov, I believe is how you pronounce it, and I apologize if I'm wrong, who grew up in Ukraine when it was controlled by the Soviet Union. Here's what she told the New York Post at the time. Those of us who grew up under communism know this all too well. Our home countries were destroyed by ideas that came dressed in pleasant, persuasive packaging. I think we can safely say, Rob, that that's exactly what Mamdani is trying to do. Now, unfortunately, it's calmed a lot of people. There's a lot of young people who are on side, a lot of people, even though he's been critical of certain things, he has support from Democrats from all ranges and sizes. There is even a billionaire, a Jewish billionaire heiress who actually has come out in support of him and gave him an astonishing amount of money, $250,000 to his super PAC, and actually basically directly said that this is the way, this is the guy to do it. Her name is Elizabeth Simons, and she is the daughter of the late billionaire hedge fund investor Jamie Simons, who was very powerful both in economic circles and political circles. These are people who are supporting someone who would destroy everything they believe in. It's hard to believe.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't wait to see how it all turns out, because can you imagine Mamdani as mayor of New York and Trump in the White House, the New Yorker in the White House? Wow. Fireworks. Cue them.
I agree.
Schedule the fireworks. Thank you.
Yep.
Talk to you next week, Michael. Great stuff. Bye-bye. Yeah, bye-bye. That's Michael Taube, syndicated columnist, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Coming up next, President of the Canadian Labour Congress, Canadian Labour Congress. Hey, Monday's Labor Day. Lots of labor issues in the news as well. We'll talk about them just ahead on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
The Labor Day long weekend is almost here. Labor Day is Monday. Labor issues have been all over the news, from Air Canada to Section 107 to work from home. What's the view of labor these days? B. Bruske is the president of the Canadian Labour Congress. It is a great pleasure to talk to you today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
On the Air Canada situation, now that's more or less in the rearview mirror now, but what did you think of the government's use of Section 107 of the Labor Code to end that labor disruption? Not the first time it's done that. It's done that many times. And what did you think of the workers' decision to defy the back-to-work order?
Well, listen, this is not the first time that we've seen government get engaged on labor issues and on strikes, lawful strikes. It's incredibly frustrating to see government do that. These workers were fighting for fair pay and to be paid for all of the hours that they work. The fact that workers are still going to work and being not paid for a multitude of hours is completely ridiculous. And then in this case, 35 hours a month on average, which is ridiculous. I don't know how many people in your listener group would be prepared to go to work for 35 hours a month and not get paid. Government's intervention meant that there was going to be a strike, because what we saw was that as soon as these workers defied the return to work order, the employer came up with a better offer. And so in my view, it would have likely avoided a strike had government not been intervening in this particular case. We saw that when we heard the Air Canada CEO talk about the fact that they were relying on government intervention and the use of 107 to get these workers back to work. And so I would remind your listeners that the only ability that workers have at the bargaining table to flex their muscle, so to speak, is going out on strike. And those are not easy decisions for workers to make, to go out on strike. Nobody wants to be walking a picket line. Everybody wants a fair deal at the bargaining table. But sometimes in order to get that fair deal, you have to use the only weapon that you have, which is to actually walk out.
Your organization said at the time there was unity across the labor movement in opposition to the government's repeated use of Section 107. I want to know what you meant by that, and whether that could have, the Air Canada situation could have escalated to include action in solidarity by other unions. Can you tell us?
Absolutely. The labor unity that we saw was incredible. Every single labor leader that belongs to the CLC, representing over 3 million workers in every sector of our economy, right across the country from coast to coast to coast, got onto a very quick Zoom meeting to hear from CUPE and from the Flight Attendants Union about what the issues were, and to pledge their support. And their support wasn't just financial support, but it was also to escalate actions. And that means additional picket line actions. And that could have looked like other unions walking out in support of, because everybody understands that you have to be paid for the hours that you work. To see the labor movement come together that quickly and that decisively was quite impressive.
Some have suggested that's the end of the government using Section 107 to intervene in labor disruptions. What do you think of that claim?
Well, I think the reality is that Section 107 is in effect dead, because the reality is that now that it's been challenged once by workers refusing to obey, I cannot imagine that it's not going to get challenged again. And so government will have to find a different approach to navigating this. Employers have to find a different approach to relying on government intervention, and they need to actually get serious when they come to the bargaining table. These workers came off a 10-year collective agreement, 10 years of pent-up frustration, workers who had been laid off during COVID, workers who, just like everybody else, is facing an affordability crisis. Just to have an employer tell you that we're going to have government intervene and have you back to work in no time.
Do you have the same kind of support for the Canada Post workers? Canada Post is losing millions of dollars every day. It is not in the same financial position as Air Canada, which is very profitable. What's your position on what's been happening at Canada Post?
Absolutely. It's a very good question. Canada Post workers, just like every other worker in this country, deserve to have their issues resolved. They deserve to have health and safety issues that they are raising at the bargaining table resolved. They deserve to have a fair wage. They deserve to have job security. And I would remind us that Canada Post has a very important service to Canadians. When you live in northern or rural areas, you are reliant on the post office. CUPW, Canada Post Union, Workers Union, has been for a long time advocating for an expansion of postal services that they could perform in order to provide value add. These are not things that Canada Post Corporation has been keen to implement. Things like postal banking, things like senior check-ins, things like EV charging stations at postal outlets. There's a multitude of things that could be done if Canada Post and, quite frankly, our federal government were keen to figure out a solution to the issue of Canada Post.
Government leaders at all levels of government, from the federal government to provincial government, municipal government, they are ordering workers back to the office full-time or nearly full-time. What do you think of that as a labor leader?
I think workers can be just as effective working from home or remotely than they are in the office. And we know that for federal public service workers, what I hear about all the time is the lack of space actually in office buildings. I hear about the conditions of cramped office space, bad air ventilation. I hear about vermin being found in those office spaces. I don't think our federal government is actually ready to have these workers come back to the office in an efficient or safe way, quite frankly. So finding solutions and finding collaboration, I think, would be the best way to go on this. We also have a housing problem in Canada. We have a climate change issue. Having workers get into their cars to drive to the office every single day when they can be just as efficient working remotely seems to be counteractive in terms of what we need to be doing. So I think we need to be creative and find some solutions.
Labor Day is Monday. What does Labor Day mean to you, and what do you do on Labor Day?
Well, Labor Day means to me to really be thankful for the solidarity that people show one another when they are out demanding better, when they're demanding workplace safety and health, when they're demanding dignity at work. It means that I will be at a Labor Day rally/picnic, as we always are on Labor Day, to celebrate with my colleagues. But it also means getting ready for the year ahead, because there's many challenges that workers are facing right now: affordability issues, Trump tariff threats that are threatening our economy, public service opportunities and cuts to public services that we are seeing or anticipate seeing coming up down the pike right away. So we're getting ready for the next year and to embolden ourselves to push back against all of those things.
Bruske, thank you for today. Great to hear from you. All the best. Enjoy your Labor Day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Take care.
President of the Canadian Labour Congress. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
What do Canadians think of AI? Are they using AI? What are they using it for? Leger has been asking Canadians about AI and has issued a new report about it. It's out today. Andrew Enns is back with us from Leger. Thanks for taking the time. Good to hear from you again.
Hi, Rob. Yeah, great to be on the program again.
How popular is AI usage in Canada?
Well, certainly AI usage is, I'd say it's exploding. It is trending up and fast. We first asked Canadians a little over 2 years ago, months after AI kind of burst into the kind of public space with ChatGPT's first edition. February 2023, we had just over 1/4 of Canadians, 27%, saying they were using AI, or 25%. And it's now, in our last poll that we just did and we're talking about today, it's over 57%. So in a little over 2 years, we're seeing that. And that's, for context, Rob, I look back at the sort of adoption rates of some of the big social media platforms. AI is at where AI is at today in terms of usage. It took platforms like Facebook and Instagram 4 or 5 years to get to. So it's really penetrating the Canadian and I'd suggest the world market.
Who's using it in Canada? It's mostly younger people, older people, cross section. What do you know about that?
Yeah, it's a pretty good cross section. Younger people, as one would expect, are certainly using it at a higher pace. 18 to 34-year-olds are quite high. 83% say they use it either for work or school or in that personal kind of more in a personal context. But the 35 to 54-year-old were 66%, 2/3. Really, that old, the sort of the older generation, 55 plus, are probably still catching up a little bit in that sense. They're using it via the chatbots largely, the ChatGPT, the Microsoft Copilot, and there's new versions of these coming out and opening up opportunities for people to try it and use it.
Okay. So primarily when people are using it, are they using it for work? Are they using it at home? What's the case there?
It's as one gets a little bit older, it's more for a personal context, a little less for work and school. But again, that 18 to 34-year-old, over 50% say they're using it for work and school, and then at the same time they're also using it in their personal, in that personal context at 60%. So they're the population that's really, there's hardly a difference. They're using it almost equally, work and in the personal sense. In that slightly older 35 to 54, it's largely for work, and then a little less in the personal space.
Okay. This is interesting when you ask people if AI is good for society, bad for society, or have they made up their mind yet? I mean, you're looking at a split. I mean, it's really right down the middle, isn't it?
Well, certainly, amongst, it is. You've got the, quite a split in terms of three ways. You've got 34% feel it's good for society, 36% say it's bad for society, and 31%, are still at this stage unsure. And we asked that similar question, earlier this year in March, and things haven't shifted, a heck of a lot. Even though we're seeing a greater uptake of usage, there's still a real dichotomy, with respect to good and bad amongst users. So we look at our sample and we identify those that said they're actually using an AI tool. 49% say it's good for society, and only 29% say it's bad. And then we look at the non-users, and there we see basically the opposite. You only have 14% who say it's good for society, and 47% say it's bad. So usage obviously has a bearing on how one feels about, whether this is good or bad for society.
Okay. And in a minute or less, because I do want, when we come back, I want to ask you about politics a little bit.
Sure.
It's overwhelming. Canadians want AI to be regulated. They want regulation of AI, right?
Yeah. There's concerns for sure. There's concerns around privacy. There's concerns around stuff, and as a default to that, look, they would for sure take more regulation or more oversight from some of the companies themselves. But I think there's also, a sense that they're not confident that's going to happen, and so they are looking for government to some degree to provide some guide rails here. I'm not sure how that works or what that looks like, but there's a desire. You're absolutely right.
Okay. I have to ask you, while I have you online, a few questions about the political horse race with about 2.5 weeks to go until Parliament is back in action in Ottawa, Andrew. So just hang on the line. Andrew Enns is with us from the polling firm Leger. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Andrew Enns is with us. Andrew is Executive Vice President at Leger Central Canada Operations. 18 days to go, and then the House of Commons will be back in action. The last time Leger released polling figures on the political horse race, you had the Liberals really enjoying a pretty solid summer honeymoon. The Liberals had a 10-point lead. It was 46-36, the NDP. Goodness gracious, at 6%, a 10-point lead for the Liberals. Here we are. It's closing in on the end of August here. Do you suspect that it's still a double-digit lead for the Liberals? Do you think things have narrowed? What's your sense of the horse race right now politically?
My sense, Rob, I'd say it certainly hasn't gotten bigger for the Liberals, and it wouldn't surprise me to see it narrow a bit. I felt at the time, of our last poll that, I was asked, did I feel things were going to continue to grow in terms of that lead? And I felt that this was sort of the high water mark, that there was a bit of a crest, and so what have we had since? I think that Air Canada strike, the kind of the government's intervention in that, and then how it played out. I think the government may have taken a bit of a hit on that.
Okay.
Mr. Polyev is back, feeling a bit more, I'd say, boisterous in terms of his by-election win, and so my sense will be, I don't think it's going to be a quick close, but I do think that we'll see things start to tighten up a little.
And on the issues, the last election was kind of this tug of war between Trump and cost of living issues. I mean, is it what's the big issue? Cost of living or Trump? Has the Trump stuff faded or
I'll say this: the Trump, in terms of when you ask the question, in terms of what's on your mind. I mean, the Trump issue is still figuring pretty prominently. But I would say that we've definitely seen a easing of the intensity and the concern around the issue, and we're also seeing, what we're seeing play out now, and we had this in our last poll, Rob. That patriotic fervor around our response to the Americans. Let's get those elbows up, and if they hit us, we punch back. That's actually now starting to soften, and our last poll was pretty moderate on that, and that presents a bit more of a challenge for the government. I mean, we see the government retreating on the counter tariffs, but not everybody's a fan, and so that's going to, I would suggest, create a bit more focus on what the government's doing and what's the result we're going to get. People are starting to wonder, when do we get a result here in terms of our relationship with the U.S.?
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrew. Very interesting and great to hear from you again today. Hope to have you back soon.
Sounds good, Rob. Good rest of your program.
Bye-bye. Andrew Enns from Leger, Executive Vice President for Central Canada at Leger. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up. Speaking of Talkback, we're going to talk about the cost of living today, wages and work, and the cost of living on Talkback. Hope to hear from you today. Join the discussion. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic, the cost of living, wages and work. The cost of living, wages and work. According to a recent poll from Abacus Data, the cost of living is far and away the top issue facing Canadians, the cost of living. When Abacus Data did a survey recently and asked Canadians, what are the top 3 issues facing Canadians? And the number one answer, and it wasn't even close, was the cost of living. That was followed by Donald Trump and then the economy. 35% said the economy was the top issue. 38% said Donald Trump was the top issue, but outpacing them all was the cost of living at 60%. More people said the cost of living was the top issue than housing affordability, which would also be obviously a cost of living issue. More people said the cost of living was the top issue than healthcare or immigration or climate change or crime or poverty, which is also a cost of living issue. But the cost of living, the biggest issue in the country right now. And David Coletto, very, very smart guy, CEO of Abacus Data, guest on this show many times, noted that feelings of precarity are on the rise. Precarity, what does that mean? More and more people are feeling insecure. More Canadians feel as though their situation is precarious, as opposed to, say, stable. Their employment is precarious. Their housing is precarious. Their financial situation is precarious. In other words, the percentage of Canadians who are feeling high levels of stress about their situation in life, their employment situation, or their housing situation, their overall financial situation, that is on the rise. Precarity on the rise. The cost of living, the top issue facing Canadians. That's kind of the backdrop for Talkback today. The cost of living. Now let's talk about wages and work. What's happening with the payrolls of the nation? There's a major report out today. It's from StatsCan. It's all about wages and work. How much money are Canadians making? How many hours are Canadians working? This is unofficially called the payroll report. StatsCan releases it every month. And this month's report, not a great report because the number of Canadians on the payrolls of the nation went down by about 33,000. Manufacturing payrolls down, construction payrolls down, retailing payrolls down, healthcare payrolls down, finance payrolls down, oil and gas payrolls down, hotels and restaurants, forestry, IT, management, down. What was up? Public administration. Public administration, in other words, government. Up by almost 4,000 people added to government payrolls. Now, as part of this report, StatsCan releases what it calls average weekly earnings. Average weekly earnings. What is the average Canadian averaging in earnings in the run of a week? And that number is $1,302 a week. $1,302 a week. That's the average. Of course, some Canadians are making more, a lot more. Some Canadians are making less and a lot less. But when you average it all out, it's $1,300 a week. Gross. Before any deductions. $1,302 a week. Now, this report also has an interesting statistics, and that's how many hours Canadians work every week. And again, it's just an average. The average is 33 hours a week, 33.4, 33 hours a week. Average Canadian workers working 5 days a week, 6.6 hours a day, average. And again, the average worker is averaging $1,300 a week in earnings, gross earnings, which would be a gross income over the year of about 67 grand. $67,704 for the year. Average. Working about 33 hours a week. The number one issue in the country is the cost of living. More and more people are saying they're stressed about jobs, about housing, about money, about the economy. Here is our question for today. If you earn gross pay before deductions, $1,300 a week, working 33 hours a week, which is about 67 grand a year, is that enough to live comfortably where you are? Or does it take two people making that kind of money? If you live in Halifax or the surrounding area, can you live comfortably on that kind of money in that part of the country? If you're with us in Kitchener-Waterloo or the surrounding area, one of the fastest growing parts of Canada, southern Ontario, can you live comfortably making that kind of money, $1,300 a week? Or does it take two? If you're listening to us today in Calgary and other parts of Alberta, 67 grand a year, gross. Can you have a comfortable life on that kind of money? Or does it take two? What would you say? Give us your honest opinion. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. $1,300 a week. 33 hours a week. 67 grand a year. Before deductions, can you have a nice life on that kind of money? Yes or no? If the answer is no, why is the answer no? Is it all because of housing, or is it housing plus gas and groceries and utility bills and taxes? Or is it because, and we've heard this before, we're living beyond our means? The cost of living, the top issue in Canada. 67 grand a year, $1,300 a week. Can you live comfortably on that kind of money? 1-833-668-2577. That's the call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. It's Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about the cost of living today. Wages, work. That's our topic. Lots of polling data saying the cost of living is the top issue in Canada. And we have new data out today from Statistics Canada. It's a monthly report issued by Statistics Canada. It's the payroll report. And it says the average Canadian is earning $1,300 a week. That's the average. Of course, it's an average. Some people are making more. Some people are making less than the average Canadian worker is working 33 hours a week. Still, though, that's a gross income, 67 grand a year, 67.7 a year. We want to know, can you live comfortably on $67,000 a year in this country where you live? Or does it take two people making that kind of money these days? And if people can't make it on this kind of money, 67 grand a year, and the cost of living is the top issue in Canada, what is going on in this country? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. I am quite shocked that every single phone line is available right now. Maybe it's all made up and the cost of living has been solved and the cost of living is not really a big issue anymore. But this monthly report from StatsCan is always interesting because it offers a really nice big picture view of what's happening with Canadians and our working lives. You know, Canadians who are, working hard, just trying to make ends meet. And we know from the polling that the top of mind issue for most Canadians right now is the cost of living. And for younger Canadians, it's even more so. Older people are much more worried about Trump than younger people. For younger people, the dominant issue in the country is the cost of living because they're not as set in their careers. They're not making as much money. But when you dig into these numbers a little bit, you get a better idea of what kind of work pays what kind of money, what kind of jobs are paying well, what kind of jobs aren't paying well, and even where the jobs are, because this report also includes information on job openings, about 500,000 job openings across the country. But the number that we're working with today is $1,300 a week as a gross pay for the run of the week. That's just an average for all the workers in all the jobs all across Canada. Of course, some jobs are going to pay more and some jobs are going to pay less. In some parts of the country, people are going to make more than in other parts of the country. In other parts of the country, people are going to make less. And all of these income figures, they're all before deductions, all those deductions that you see on your pay stub when you get paid every couple of weeks. But when you average it all out, StatsCan says it's $1,302 a week. That's an average worker's pay in this country. Can you live comfortably on that where you are? Or do you need two people making that kind of money these days in Canada to have what you would call a comfortable life? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Love to hear from you today on Talkback. Ben in Calgary. Up first today, Ben. Hello, Ben.
Hey, how's it going there?
Everything's going well here, Ben. $1,300 a week, Ben, is the average worker's weekly pay in this country. Do you think you're going to have a comfortable life on that kind of income?
You know, according to most bosses, I'm sure that they'd say yes.
Right.
It's really a two-sided coin here. If you're shopping at Wholesale Club, you're buying no-name brand everything. I don't have a family to support. Yeah, you could probably do it just fine. You're not going to have a lot of savings. You're not going to be able to put a lot away. But, you know, if you're a single income household, you got a kid, it's an absolute struggle. I don't see this being even possible. But, yes, you can get your bills paid, but you're going to be paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I was just talking with a friend of mine about this a few weeks ago that
Okay.
we use 62,000 as our example, but it's the new minimum wage for 35 plus, and that's kind of how we're looking at it. And
Really?
can they pay more? I don't understand why.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
you go
just
ahead.
want to jump in there. You're saying
Yeah.
$62,000 a year is kind of like the new minimum wage? Like if you're making 62 grand a year, you're basically working for minimum wage?
For 35 plus, if you're looking to have a family,
For 35 plus.
you're running by. Yeah, it's
Wow.
it's really tough, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm in sales, so luckily I can rely on commission and those types of things. But any company I've ever worked for, that's always seems to be the starting point. It's that it's 62, it's 65, and I work for billion-dollar companies, and then I've worked for companies that are only bringing in $30 million, and somehow they can all just afford to pay this much money. And it really is, it's like they all got together and just fixed the price of what everybody's worth. And that's essentially how I look at it.
Well, it's very interesting because 62, 67, in pretty much the same neighborhood there. Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. You would say at 67 grand a year, it's a struggle these days in this country.
It's a struggle. You can get by. You have to focus.
You can get by, but you have to be frugal, you would say, right?
You got to be frugal, and you can't. And yes, if you live above your means, absolutely, you're never going to survive on that. But everybody wants to live a little bit outside of it. You want to get a little something nice. But it's by saying, yes, you can live on it. Yes, you can live on it. But you're not going to get anything that you really wanted. You're not going to be able to go to that restaurant that you always wanted to go to. You can, but the week before that, you really got to focus on putting that money aside and not getting that extra, branded ice cream at the grocery store, that you wanted. It's,
gotcha. Gotcha.
It requires focus. It's not. You're not comfortable. That's the best way to put it.
You're looking at the steak in the meat aisle, and you're looking at the price, and you're putting it back, right? Okay. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you. You've got us off to a great start, Ben. Thank you. He says 62 grand's like making minimum wage these days. What do you say? 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We have polling data that says the cost of living remains the top issue in Canada. It's not even close. The cost of living is the top issue in Canada. And we have a new report today from StatsCan that says the average Canadian is earning $1,300 a week. What kind of life can you get on $1,300 a week? That's gross income. $1,300 a week, 67 grand a year. Can you live comfortably on that? Does it take two people making that kind of money? If you can't make it on 67 grand a year anymore, why not? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577 to Kitchener. Frank is up next in Kitchener. Hi, Frank.
Yeah, hi, Rob.
Hi, Frank.
Just doing the math, say let's using 67,000. You get to keep about 60% of that. 40% goes to the government in all its forms. So
sure.
In terms of your net, you're now looking at living on $40,000 a year.
Stay with me, Frank. Your cell phone's breaking up there, Frank. Let's give it a second here. Give it a second. No, that's it's not working, Frank. You call us back when you get into a clearer zone, when you get a few more bars there on your phone. Let's take another call from Calgary. Let's go to Justin. Is in Calgary.
Hey, Rob, how are you today?
Hi, Justin. Yeah, good to hear from you. Yeah. 67 grand a year, 1,300 a week. Can you make it on that?
Well,
comfortably?
I used to be able to. It was quite easy a while ago when I was in my 20s. I'm now in my late 40s, and it's not cutting it. My problem was I was living way beyond my means. I was in the trades. Back in the day, working as a finishing carpenter, I would do about 120 a year. And nowadays, nobody's building anything. The renovations are down, and I'm around that level that's being mentioned right now. This was my fault where I am right now. I went above my means. I owned a boat for a while. I've had over 3 RVs, going camping on the weekends, really enjoying Alberta and the mountains, doing what I thought I had kind of a right to do. But
that you had earned it, right? You had earned it, kind of thing.
I felt that way. Yes, sir.
Okay,
and,
fair enough.
You know, and as things generally started to change and slow down, I didn't match that, right? I continued to do and live the lifestyle I was continuing. Like, I just went on with it. You know, I figured it was going to turn around, everything was going to be fine. But you know what, Rob? It didn't turn around. And so now, you know, I have no place to camp. I don't have a boat anymore. And these are all things that are very luxury items, all right? These aren't things that I need to live, right? But, you know, when it comes to, you know, restaurants and vacations and I just...
time. Gotta go. Thanks.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The cost of living, wages, and work. That's what we're kicking around today on Talkback, because we have lots of polling data that says the cost of living is the issue in Canada. And we have a new report out just today from StatsCan that says the average Canadian is earning $1,300 a week. That's gross income. That's before any deductions. It also says the average Canadian is working 33 hours a week, but it's a gross income on an annual basis of about $67,000 a year. Can you live comfortably on that is what we're asking. Where you live. Does it take 2 people making that kind of money? 1-833-668-2577 to have a comfortable life. Andre in Kitchener. Thanks for waiting. Andre, you're up next.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Andre. Yeah, hi there. What would you say?
You're such a downer talking about this subject.
I don't mean to be a downer. I'm just being a realist.
I know. It's a good thing it's Friday tomorrow, right?
I suppose.
You know, 20 years ago, I had a job, and my first week pay was for my mortgage, and it was possible back then. And now it is not possible to do that, to have that drink. You do need 2 people in Kitchener or Waterloo or area to have that drink. And we make $82,000 a year net, and we cannot, with down payment, and we cannot have still that drink. But the thing is, Rob, is that it's not just here. It's like, okay, you know what? When I lived in Montreal, Toronto wasn't affordable for me because for a bedroom there was $1,100. So I was like, no, I don't want that type of life. And you need to make a lot of money to like, everybody's getting more money, teachers and, you know, first in line, stuff like that.
Okay.
But the thing is it's unrealistic. I know people that make 120 and they still can't do what they want. Like you said on your show one time, one vacation a year or this or that, right? We are very fortunate that we have a lot of community activities for the kids. We're very grateful for that. That's what we do. I don't know what is realistic, but I know Canada is feeling it. The world is feeling it. So that's why I say it's a sad subject, because I don't see the change, Rob.
Okay. Thank you, Andre. I don't mean to be depressing. I'm trying to flush this thing out here. You know, $67,000. I mean, maybe I'm just old. I don't know. There was a time in this country where you could live. You know, you could have a nice life on $67,000 a year. My father worked his whole life, never made $60,000 a year in his life. And has a very nice life. And nowadays, we have, you know, the average. This is an average income now, $67,000 a year, and yet people are very worried about the cost of living. Far and away, the number one issue in the country. Cameron in Calgary. Hello, Cameron. Hi, Cameron.
Hi, how's it going, Rob?
Very, very well. Thank you. $67,000 a year. Can you live comfortably on that? Does it take 2 people? I mean, $134,000 a year. Yeah. Give me a sense.
You
of
look
it.
at it nowadays, like rental units for anything, you're looking anywhere of $2,000 to $3,500, and that depends on your family size. So if you're a family of 4 or 6, you're looking for bigger units, which means you're paying more for rent. So if you're making $67,000 as a single income, there's no way.
No way. Not possible. Is it all
Not a
about
chance.
housing? Is housing the dominant issue, or is it housing plus?
I think that's the biggest thing. Like, we don't have cable in our house, and I make over $100,000 a year. My wife, she makes about $57,000 or $60,000 a year, so we can live comfortably. We have a campsite up in Sundre. We go there every weekend if we can, but our rent at our place is also $1,600 a month for 4 bedrooms. I got an awesome landlord.
Okay.
But if I'm looking at 4 bedrooms in Strathmore, that's where we live, at a house, it's 35 plus. So that right there, putting it up to 3,500, that's double what I'd be paying for rent almost right now as it is.
Right.
We couldn't do it even at $160,000 because we still have our cars. We still have to travel to and from Calgary to work every single day. So it just wouldn't be a possible thing.
Okay, we have heard this when we've talked about cost of living issues and, wages these days and work. We've heard from some people that, well, we just want nice stuff. Our tastes, our desires are on the extravagant side now. We want the nice car in the driveway. We want the live in a nice place, and that we're living beyond our means. Our expectations are not rooted in reality. What would you say to that?
I agree with that, but at the same time, we're kind of being forced into it with having to have better economy on our cars, like better this whole carbon thing that was going on before.
Oh yeah, sure.
So you got to have a good carbon producing vehicle, so you're not getting charged down the road for it. There used to be a point where our cars used to go up, 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 kilometers without having to do much more than keeping maintenance. And nowadays, you're lucky if you get 300,000 or 400,000.
Right. So you're saying even with 2 people making, say, 67 a year, you're talking 134 gross a year, it would still be a struggle?
Yeah, I don't see how anybody in the city can keep that up. Like I said, I live in Strathmore,
really?
And if it wasn't for great landlords, we wouldn't be where we're at.
Holy smokes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yep. Good to hear from you today. We'll stop here and be right back. More of your calls today. The cost of living, work and wages, what it takes to make ends meet these days and live a comfortable Canadian lifestyle. 1-833-668-2577. 3 lines available there. We'd love to hear from you on the topic today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So let's call it $1,300. $1,300 a week gross. Can you live comfortably on that in Canada? Does it take 2 people making $1,300 a week to live comfortably? Because that's what the average worker is making in this country, according to a new report out today from Statistics Canada, the backdrop being the cost of living crisis in this country. Top issue in Canada. 1-833-668-2577. Judy is up next in Calgary. Hello, Judy. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Just great, Judy. Thank you. What's your opinion?
Okay. My opinion is that I was listening to your show many times, and when this low-cost living comes up, that people are struggling, I really think sometimes they're talking about a different country.
Why is that?
Because why is that? I have a home service. That's my business. I go out to cook for people. I live in a sort of a middle-class building in Calgary, and there's like 200 apartments there. Okay.
Yes.
So probably every day every minute. I'm walking my dog. The dishes are there. So if you're so low income, now these are middle class people. I saw them ordering in 2 coffees. I saw them ordering in alcohol. Okay?
Wow.
So,
Okay.
So the garbage bin is there, very close. Some people should look at it sometimes. What is the waste in the garbage bin?
Right. Are you peeking into people's garbage cans? Are you peeking into people's garbage cans to find
they
out
put
what's
it
in?
outside on this big bin, like there are lots of electric machines and everything. So then I work in houses. I cook for them. The waste, which there I have to peek in their garage, in their garbage bin. The waste there in their garbage bin. So when they say to me that this, like Pierre Poilievre, that people can't put food on the table, it makes me sometimes think, is he talking about the same country? I lived in another country once. Okay? I see them traveling. They tell me, oh, we're going next week here. We're going next week there. When you're driving on the road, there is so much car that they're from bummer to bummer. One person sitting in it. So when they say to me that $1,300 a week, is it okay or not? I make the half of it. I'm a single person.
Wow.
I think they're wasting a lot and they're crying a lot. I think their expectations are very, very high. Okay, because I lived in Calgary for years and years. We never had this, that they bring our food to the door. We never had this before.
Right.
So Mama and Dad.
So you think our lifestyles, people's lifestyles are too extravagant? They're spending money on stuff they shouldn't be spending it on.
How about going to the store and maybe make a meal what you can warm up the next day? I want to have a life that they will bring my food every day to my door. That's the way I'm looking at it. So when I hear it, I don't see them struggling at all. I don't see people struggling. What I hear is, the prices are very high. Yes, but that's the way you should live. Like every country has higher prices in the world now.
Yeah.
So I don't think, why do they think Canada should stay the paradise country?
Okay. All right. Thank you. No, it's very interesting. It's very interesting, Judy. You know, that's kind of the flip side of it. You know, the cost of living is, the big issue. People are making $1,300 a week. But what if the skip the dishes guy is there, every day or every second day delivering takeout to the door? What does that say about the kind of lifestyle that we want? The lifestyle of convenience, if you will. Chris, up next in Calgary. Hello, Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Oh, everything's fine here. Chris, we could use some of your Calgary weather here. It's a little cool and rainy in this part of the country, the kind of weather you've had all summer. So send it here.
Yeah, well, we sent it your way already. Enjoy it. We're basking in the sun here.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah.
Anyway, to the topic, a couple things.
Yes.
First of all, do a little basic math. You find out that $1,300 a week equates to $32.50 per hour for a 40-hour week. That's not too bad a wage. Having said that, if you live in a major city like Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, Montreal, etc., that's probably going to be pretty tough. I was down south end of Calgary wandering around one of the newer areas, and I happened to pass by a property management office, and I looked in the window. They had their ads up in the window, and in that particular neighborhood, a one-bedroom apartment, and it wasn't high-end, didn't have a swimming pool and a gym and all those other amenities, and it was $3,500 for a one-bedroom and over $4,000 a month for a two-bedroom. So it's not going to cut it at $32.50 an hour. Having said that, if you live in a smaller town or city or out in the country, it's going to be a lot more livable on that kind of a wage. But I think the main thing is there's two main problems here. One is our taxation, and I'm not just talking about federal, but provincial, municipal, all of the taxes we pay on the sin taxes, the gas taxes, on and on and on. It's absolutely crazy. The guy mentioned it was 40% of our income. That means you're working into May just to pay the bloody taxes, okay?
Oh, yeah. 6 months a year, yeah. Tax Freedom Day. They do Tax Freedom Day every year. It's well into 6 months of the year now before you hit that Tax Freedom Day. Yeah.
That's absolutely crazy, especially when you consider what we're getting for it, which ain't very much. Second thing is, and a number of callers have already mentioned this, you got to define comfortable. And there's a lot of people out there that comfortable means a new car, skip the dishes, delivering food, going on that holiday every year, on and on and on. You can live quite comfortably by cooking your own food, not going out to eat, driving an older car. The car I drive, by the way, is a 2017. Okay, so it's not ancient, but it's not brand spanking new off the showroom.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good points all around. Thank you very much. Yeah. Make very good sense. Be right back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
See, polls that show the cost of living, the top issue in Canada, and it's not even close. Way ahead of anything to do with Donald Trump. And then you have a new report out today. It says the average Canadian's earning $1,300 a week gross, or $67,000 a year gross before deductions. We want to know, can you live comfortably on that? Does it take two people making that kind of money to have a comfortable life? You can define that any way you want. We have our own ideas of what a comfortable life is. It's not extravagant. 1-833-668-2577. Linda, Southern Alberta. Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Linda. Yeah, go ahead, Linda. Good.
Well, I have to live on $30,000 a year, so it's not a comfortable life. I just exist.
Okay. All right.
Because no holidays, no
Yes.
extras. I live out in the country. I own my home. It's an older home. There's sometimes I should have repairs done. I don't because I also drive. So the car takes priority because I have to drive to get to to the bigger centers to do anything. So yeah. But I don't owe anything, but I don't get very much either. And yeah, that's a trip to McDonald's is an outing. So yeah.
Trip to McDonald's is an outing. That's a luxury for you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like go to town, eat out. That's it.
Yeah, well, you know, a $20 Big Mac meal is kind of a luxury item for some people these days, I suppose, Linda. It's, you know, you can get sticker shock when you even eat at McDonald's these days. But
oh, yeah.
I mean, at $67,000 a year, people are clearly, and it's come through loud and clear during this hour, some people say that it's even unrealistic to have a comfortable life on $67,000 a year. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess it depends on what you, like you say, what you call comfortable. They have to go out or they have to have at least 3 trips a year or, you know, you have to participate in these activities and stuff. So if you're looking at your wants compared to what your needs are, maybe, you know, if you're saying some of these wants are actually my needs, I need to have this, well, then maybe your cost of living goes up. So.
Right.
But
let me ask you, because you know you're older than me. I won't ask you how old you are, but
well, I'm past 70, so okay.
Right. You ever make $67,000 a year in your life?
Nope. Our school board never paid us that kind of money.
Right. Okay.
We would get a raise, but then we'd lose days, so that canceled out whatever you made. So yeah, no, I never had that kind of income, so I'm used to not having. So when you've never had it, you don't miss it. So
I mean, we've heard people call today in this hour, and we'll have to wrap up our conversation there, Linda. Thank you. $62,000 is the new minimum wage. Can't live comfortably on $82,000. Even if 2 people were making $67,000, it's tough. The cost of living, wages, and work. When we come back, hour number 2 of Talkback is ahead on News Radio.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow, where we've been talking about the cost of living, wages, and work today because we have polling data. This was Abacus data just a few days ago. The cost of living is the top issue in Canada. It's not even close. Trump-related issues a distant second. We also have a new report out from StatsCan today. The average Canadian, okay, $1,300 a week. That's gross. Okay, that's before all those deductions that you see on your paycheck. $1,300 a week, average. So that's, gross income, 67 grand a year. Can you live comfortably on 67 grand a year? Where you live? Does it take two people making 67 grand a year? Put this 67 grand a year in some perspective for us in terms of quality of life these days in this country. 1-833-668-2577. 2 lines available. Let's get hour number 2 underway with Hickey in Calgary. Hello, Hickey.
Hey, just going to say I love that little old lady in the apartment downtown Calgary with, 200 units in there saying she sees Skip the Dishes come every day. But, I think we don't see 200 Skip the Dishes come. I think when you really think, Rob, where we've been in the last 12 years, 14 years, we've had a lot of hard times. And, a lot of people that were on your show today said, they don't have the ability to even go on a vacation once per year. And so I think the small wins are what a lot of this generation or the last 2 generations are looking for nowadays. They don't, no one's encouraged them to save money in RSPs because they don't have the money to save in RSPs. There's no advantage to doing that because inflation overtakes it. And in most cases, they want the small wins so that they can just keep going. And, I can tell you in Alberta, we were excited for the federal election until the results came out. We need a change. 40% taxation is just ridiculous, and we need a change. And it doesn't matter how much money you make. The government is taking too much. And I think a lot of the people, you hear about new cars and things like that. You need that little win. If it's $300 a month more to get into a new car, you need that win to just get up and keep going every day. Sometimes 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, just to make it go. And you need those wins to keep going because otherwise you're just pushing a snowball up a hill.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much, Hickey. I'm so glad. I always appreciate your calls. You bring such an interesting perspective when you call in, and hope to hear from you soon. Wade is in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. Hello, Wade.
Hey, Rob. I'm pulled over on the side of the highway on my way to Nanton for an event.
Okay.
Anyways.
Very good.
It's funny that this topic came up. I just recently did, a couple of days ago, I did a research from the Fraser Institute. An average family of 4 in Alberta, they have a cash income of $164,958. 41% of that is the total tax bill. And
oh yes, I would suspect so.
Yeah, so it's it's more like 41 to 48, depending on what you do with your life. And so off the top of your check, obviously, comes a personal income tax. But then there's corporate income tax, which is passed on to the consumer. There's all the payroll contributions that come off your check. There's the sales taxes. In Alberta, we don't have a sales tax. But and then there's excise duties and taxes on everything you buy: alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, vaping, fuel.
Yeah, the sin taxes.
Like
yeah.
So we're definitely, every Canadian is being overtaxed by the federal government. They hide a lot of those taxes and all these things. I didn't even realize until I did this research that there's a green levy on vehicles that are considered not fuel efficient. And so my next search is going to be a list of vehicles where we pay a federal tax on that nobody ever tells you about when you go to buy a vehicle.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to take your word for it. I'll look it up later. But
sure.
$1,300 a week. $1,300 a week. Okay, and that's not free and clear, right? As I said, that's before all those deductions that you listed.
Yeah. So did they give you a net number?
No,
Like,
no, no. It's just before deductions.
PPP. Yeah.
No, just before deductions. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no way you could live on that if
No way.
you were
Okay.
renting a place. There's just no way. One person,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
if you had a wife and children, then it's even more crazy.
Yeah. Well, what if your spouse
Anyways.
was making the same? What if your spouse was making the same and it's not 67, it's 134? Is it any easier?
Okay.
Must be a lot easier then.
Well, then let's say that at $1,300 a week, you've got two people working. 40% of that goes to taxes all over the place. So now
Right.
you're up to what, maybe $1,500-$1,600 a week that you actually take home,
Okay.
right?
All right.
And
Yeah.
so if you've got two people working, but your rent is $3,000 a month. So how much spare income do you have to just kind of like eat and enjoy life a little bit? And
Gotcha.
and it's absolutely obvious that our new federal government wants to keep everybody broke.
Okay. All right. I don't know about that, but we'll wrap it up there. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just a little bit more on this report. I mean, the average is 1,300 a week. They do break it down by, various jobs that people are doing. If people are working in oil and gas, I mean, they're making a lot more than that. 92% more. It's like 2,500 a week if you're in the oil and gas sector. But if you're working in the food industry, it's barely $500 a week, $512. So you're 60% below the average weekly earnings. If you're working in public administration, which is the government, you're making a lot more than the average. It's about $1,700 a week, 30% more. Construction, 23% more. IT, 46% more, $1,900 a week. And in Alberta, I will say this, Wade, the workers in Alberta have the highest average weekly earnings in the country at $1,370 a week. And I suspect those high-paying oil and gas jobs have a lot to do with that. We'll be right back. Cost of living, wages, and work. And what kind of life can you enjoy on $1,300 a week? 67 grand a year. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been talking about the cost of living, wages, work, and whether you can live comfortably on $1,300 a week, which is the average weekly earnings in Canada, according to the payroll report that was released by StatsCan today, which also said the average Canadian is working 33 hours a week. It's a number that hasn't seemed to move in ages. It's 67 grand a year, but can you live comfortably on that? Does it take two people making 67 grand a year to live comfortably in Canada? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577 in Carsland, Alberta. Dell, up next on Talkback. Hi there, Dell. What would you say?
Hi. No, you can't do it.
Can't do it. Why
no,
not?
you can't do it. Because at $1,300, you take 42% of that is in taxes for the government. Doesn't leave you that much. Time you pay your rent, and you have to put insurance on your vehicle and your house, and that there's none left.
Okay. Are you surprised at all that people are struggling with, even with an annual income of 67 grand a year, Dell?
No, I'm not surprised at all.
You're not surprised at all?
No. The government has spent way too much. They taxed us right to the hilt.
Okay. That's kind of a theme throughout the hour, is a lot of people think it's almost more of a tax issue than it seems to be an inflation issue, is what I'm hearing from the callers today. I mean, is that how you see it?
No, inflation, the prices are up a bit and all that. But that's the way it goes. It's the taxes that the federal government's put on us, and they're just taking it, and they're not giving us a break.
Right. I mean, it sounds like you've been around the block a few times. I mean, 67 grand a year. Am I crazy thinking it wasn't that long ago that was a decent income in this country?
I'd say maybe 15 years ago.
15 years ago? That long ago? Really?
Yep. Really?
That long ago? Really? Eh? Okay. All right.
That was no. That if you go back and look at go back 20 years ago, our cost of living was a lot less than it is now.
Okay. What if because this is the average earning for a week for a worker? What if you had, a married couple? Say one's a teacher, one's a bus driver. They're both making 67 grand a year. Do you think it's easier then?
They would have to watch their pennies, that's for sure.
Even at that, with a household income of 134 grand a year, you think it'd still?
Yeah, because you'd have to figure out. Yeah, yes, it would. Because the one person wages for the year will have to cover the expenses of the house, the food, the utility bills, and the insurances. And then what's that? The other person, that's what they can live on.
All right, Del. Thank you. And thanks for waiting, Del. I know it was a bit of a wait for you today. Let's get to John on next from Calgary. Hi, John.
Hey. Hi, how's it going?
Very good, John. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the last caller. Like, if you had two incomes at that, you're just making it. That's kind of where I'm at in my situation. The wife and I are together. But now once you start adding on, like you said, taxes from the government, from provincial government, federal, out here in Alberta, like they decided to lift the caps off insurance. They lift the caps off tuition. And if you want to better yourself in this province, you have to have like 2-3 jobs. Like trying to support our kids through university, that's next to impossible. Property tax, that's another thing that adds to the bill. And car insurance, food, we're just getting by. Like, we're comfortable, but we're not making those strides forward down the future. We have to cut back on some of our enjoyment, your fun stuff that you enjoy living with. But that's the thing, especially if you have kids, you can't live on that amount with one income. That is next to impossible.
Okay. But you're saying it's a struggle even with two people with that kind of income. As I say, you have two people with career jobs. They're both making, you're talking almost $140,000 a year. Is it really that much of a struggle? Really? Wow.
We lucked out when back in 2005, we were able to buy a house. I lucked out because money from my grandfather, so I was able to get a down payment. The wife and I figured this out about a month ago. If we were to buy a house today and start from scratch there, no, there's no way. We'd be paying rent. And the other thing is, you have people paying rent like $200 or $2,000, $3,000 a month. Meanwhile, somebody who does have a house and a mortgage, $1,500 a month. So it's more doable. But yet, people who've been renting for their lives, they don't have the money to put down for a down payment. But yet, they've been paying astronomical amounts in rent payments. But the bank's like, well, you don't have a house, you don't have a history. We can't lend you money because you have no history. And you're like, but you've been paying over $2,000 to $3,000 a month in rent, and that's for nothing. Like it is a hard time out here.
It's a hard time. Okay, that's coming through loud and clear. Thank you. 1-833-668-2577. As we get a better appreciation today of why a pollster like David Coletto calls 1,500 Canadians, punches the numbers, and comes back, and 6 out of 10 Canadians are saying the number one issue, far and away, in this country facing Canadians right now is the cost of living. I mean, the last caller, even if you're making $135,000, $140,000, it's still a struggle for a lot of people. I mean, well into the six figures. What do you say? 1-833-668-2577 on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So according to this report released by Statistics Canada, again, they're just averages, but interesting benchmarks nonetheless, and numbers to work with. The average Canadian is earning, in the run of a week, before deductions, $1,300. $1,300. working 33 hours a week, but it's a gross income of 67 grand a year. We're just asking, can you live comfortably on that? Does it take two people making 67 grand a year to live comfortably? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577 with the cost of living in the backdrop. Bill in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Bill. You're on the air.
Hello. Hi,
Bill.
How are you?
Very good, Bill. Thank you. What would you say, Bill?
Well, I'm a senior on pension,
Yeah.
and with the supplement, I get about $2,000 a month with all the supplements, the province and the federal.
Right.
And it's next to impossible to live on $2,000 a month.
Right. So you're trying to make it on 24 grand a year. Take home.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can live on Kraft dinner and noodles, I guess you're okay.
Now, what's your if you don't mind, Bill? What's your living situation? Are you paying market rent? Are you paying subsidized rent? Are you in a house that you own? What's the situation
I've got
there?
a house that I own, but I've got a lot of debt on it, and I've had to take a second mortgage on it just to keep current with bills.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, it's pretty tough.
Yeah. So, what do you think about all these callers who are saying it's almost impossible to make it on 67 grand a year?
I think it's tough to make it on just about anything now. I don't know what type of income you need to support whatever you've got to support. My house, I've because of the debt I've got, I've rented the upstairs. I've rented a room out. I'm living in the smallest room in the house,
right?
And just trying to survive. Delivering pizza on the side, trying to cover the bills. But I don't understand. Like you work in this country. I own several businesses before.
Okay.
And I wasn't smart enough to save whatever money I made. But, you contribute for 50 years to this country, and then you get a $2,000 a month pension to live off. That part I don't understand. And I'm not the only senior probably that feels that way.
It must be, you must be watching every dollar at $24,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how old are you? How old are you?
I'm 76 right now.
And you're delivering pizza on the weekend?
On the weekdays. Anytime.
On the weekdays. Right.
Yeah.
My gosh. God bless you.
But I just don't understand why, so many people can't survive on 60, 70,000 a year when other people have to survive on a lot less. Back in my day, my parents, there was only my dad worked. Now it seems like two people have to work just to survive.
Yeah. Well, we've heard it today from people who are saying even if two people in the family are making this kind of money, the average weekly income in Canada, which works out to 67 grand each, it's still tough. All the best, man.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, on the home stretch of today's topic, let me just give you a little programming note. We haven't finalized it yet, but it's tentative right now. We've kind of written it down in pencil. We are hoping to have Pierre Poilievre is going to be on the show tomorrow, I think. The leader of the Conservative Party, the new MP for Battle River Crowfoot. Pierre Poilievre, probably, if it comes to pass as we hope it will, he would join us tomorrow, probably in Calgary, around 10:15. So for our listeners in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, around 12:15, and for our friends in Halifax, an hour later, 1:15. Okay, so that'll be interesting. It's about crime. It'll be about crime and that situation that we talked about last week in in Lindsay, Ontario, and self-defense, all of that stuff. So that'll be interesting if that comes to fruition tomorrow. Fingers crossed. We're talking about the cost of living today, wages and work, the cost of living, the top issue in the country. And the average Canadian bringing home, well, not even bringing home, but grossing $1,300 a week. That's before deductions, 67 grand a year. And we've been asking, can people live comfortably on 67 grand a year? Does it take two people making 67 grand a year? And we've had some really interesting answers to these questions today. Let's keep it going. John on the line in Calgary. Hi, John.
Hi, Rob. Great show as always. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
I think
very good.
The answer for at least for Calgary, and it's an average, is it's not possible. But I think there's a couple of things to bear in mind. First is 33 hours a week is only half a week, so probably these people have probably got 2, if not 3 jobs. That's number one. And number 2 would be, for your caller before. We've got to learn how to save. You can't just spend your money and expect to get saved by the state, at the end of your working career. So I would emphasize to all of your listeners, think about how much money you need in retirement and start saving it now. They say, a dollar put away today is worth, $50 in 50 years' time kind of thing. Like, start saving and be prepared to pay for your own retirement with that. I think our expectations are also wrong. We all want multiple holidays. We all want the best food, and that's not possible on the lower end of the pay scale.
Okay, but you're saying not possible on 67 grand a year.
Well,
wrap your head around that. I mean, there was a time, and people are saying 15 years ago. I don't even think it was that long ago. That's just my own personal opinion, but there was a time like 67 grand a year would be a good income.
Yeah, possibly, and it's true that the cost of living has increased, particularly groceries. When it comes to rental properties, I've always been told that the first 40 hours of your pay should equal your rent. And if you looked across time, I think you'd find that. So, is it true that rents are out of control? I don't think so.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you, John, and kind words as always, and I appreciate that. Just on... And this is the payroll report. That's what StatsCan calls it, payroll. It's about payroll. Hours worked. I mean, this number hasn't budged in ages. It says the average Canadian is working 33.4 hours a week. Average, okay. Some people are working more, some people are working less. It's the same as it was last month, the same as it was last year, 33.4 hours. That's people on the payroll, punching the clock, so to speak, 33.4 hours a week. Honest to God, honestly, just my own opinion. Most of the people I know who are working full time are working a lot more than 33 hours a week. A lot more. I'm working more than 33 hours a week. Way more than 33 hours a week. That seems to be on the low side to me, but I get it. It's an average. And that's the only number StatsCan has about a work week in this. It doesn't break it down by job or by profession or anything. Maybe a lot of government workers are working 33 hours a week. I don't know too many people in the private sector working full-time 33 hours a week, not even 7 hours a day. Interesting, though, because we just came through this whole Air Canada thing, and the big issue was unpaid work. If the average people, the time we're spending on the payroll is 33 hours a week, I tend to think, I could be wrong. Could be wrong. Sure, it could be wrong. But I suspect a lot of people are doing a lot of unpaid work. I know a lot of people. In fact, most of the people I know are working way more than 33 hours a week. But these are purely payroll numbers. That's what the report is based on. Larry, thanks for waiting. Larry, you're up next there, Larry. Hi, Larry.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. I just came across your show, and I'm loving what I hear. I just want to weigh in real quick on this. I'll talk fast. I got a lot to say, but $67,000. I live in the U.S. part-time. I live in Colombia part-time. And when I do proportional comparisons, we are way overtaxed. Now, our problem here is the Canadian government and the money that they're taking. in taxes. I've got so many things I could say. I'm just going to give you one thing for our viewers to think about. And this would come from ourworldindata.com. Says Canada has 8,953 trees. Canada, according to StatsCan last year, produced 545.6 million tons of carbon. The trees we have absorbed 727,650 tons of carbon. We are a carbon sink. We should be getting a rebate check for the carbon that's produced that we absorb. Yeah. Our government is robbing our people to pay their debt. Our government is the most mismanaged industry there is. And in any free industry, those people would all be fired, not voted out, fired, forthwith, walked out of their desk with security. We need a change in government. We need a change in tax. And as soon as people realize that, I cannot believe $67,000 people can't live on. That's crazy. But again, take a look at your taxes. I'm calling from Calgary, and I know that I just ran this through AI. An average person here in Alberta will earn $68,000. I calculated this as a single person, no exemptions. They'll pay a little over $8,000 in tax to the federal government. They'll pay a little over $2,000 to the provincial government. Our government throws money every which way. They have to borrow money on our dime to give it to Ukraine, to spread it around the world, just to keep an image. When people start figuring this out and make the changes, they'll be able to live properly again.
Okay, I will just say, I don't know what the new Carney government's position would be and whether it would change, but under the previous Trudeau government, the official stance of the Trudeau government was, despite what you said about Canada being a carbon sink, that was not the government's official position, that Canada is not a carbon sink, has not been a carbon sink for a very long time, just to let you know. Thank you, though, for your call. Be right back with more of your calls on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Can you live a comfortable life making $1,300 a week? Gross in this country, $67,000 a year before deductions. Yes, no, why not? Does it take two people? 1-833-668-2577. Darlene in Red Deer. Hi, Darlene. What would you say?
Hey, how are you?
I'm just great, Darlene. What would you say?
Perfect. Little history about me. I'm a small business owner. I own a cleaning company. I'm not very big. It's just me. But I used to be an operations manager for a cleaning company in 2019. I quit my job to start my own business because just made more sense. But I can say that I agree with you in the fact that it's been the last maybe 5 years where things have really turned a bit sour as far as cost of living goes, like maybe longer, but definitely in the last 5 years I can attest to that because I have been growing a business since then. I used to make about $30,000 a year when I was employed, and now I make about triple that. And I'm doing okay. I'm a bit of a success story that way. My partner's a mechanic, and he's gone the other way where it's been harder for the mechanics because of pricing and everything else. And I actually blame COVID and the way things were handled. And also I agree with your last caller with the liberal government and the carbon tax, which caused inflation on everything. And again, I can attest to that because of my cost of supplies. I used to buy a 5-gallon thing of spray 9, which was under $100. It's now $150. And that's just in the last 5 years. So the tariffs scare me a little bit as a small business owner. So I try and stock up and prepare. But at the end of the day, we all try to balance our life with, pleasure, like traveling and eating out. But between my partner and I, we're making almost $200,000 a year, and we don't go out. Like,
you don't go
we
out.
went out yesterday. We
Really?
don't go out to eat. We really
Wow.
don't, or we save to do the things we really want to do. Like, you know, you have to earn what you get. And I know a lot of people are living on credit and living beyond their means. There's absolutely happening, like with Skip the Dishes. Like, I see kids all the time getting Skip the Dishes, and I don't know how they do it, because me making $100,000 a year, like, that's just doesn't make any sense. I'd rather save my money, go on a trip, you know, on a budget and things like that. You still need your mental health. You still, as a blue collar worker, need to recharge. People are allowed to have their enjoyment, so I don't like to come down on people that are doing it on a budget. We don't know what everybody's doing, but I think things like Skip the Dishes and that mentality of going in debt, and that's okay. I think people are waiting for things to change, and they're not going to change. We can't go backwards. We can't lower prices on things. That's just the way things are now. Like, if you think your cost of living is going to go down, it's just not going to go down. And that's the harsh reality of it. I blame the Liberal government. I blame COVID. It's just like, I don't know how our seniors do it. I don't have a pension because I'm self-employed, and I'm soon to be 59 years old in good health. And I can't foresee a retirement until I can't work anymore. That's what I'm thinking. Like, our seniors need to be taken care of. You know, the old age security? What even is that? What does that pay for anymore?
Okay.
Like, it's scary.
Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you, Darlene, and all the best to you. Very eye-opening. Look, we're going to have to stop here. We're right up against it again. $200,000 a year combined, her and her partner. They don't go out to eat. 1-833-668-2577. News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right, let's get right to it, because there's not a lot of time here, and we do have quite a few callers to get to. Luke in Calgary. Luke, are you with me, Luke?
Yes. Good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, hi there. $1,300 a week.
First time call.
Gross. $1,300 a week gross.
Excuse me. I just have a quick comment to make on your topic. I've been following your show, and I have the comment I have to make. I think has relevancy to your $67,000 a year thing. Is that it relates back to the Canada Post workers, and the raise that they were given back when just before they got ordered back to work by the Trudeau Federals. They were given a $5 an hour raise. Now, a $5 an hour raise, as my wife used to be payroll, and that constitutes almost a $10,000 gross augmentation on their existing wages back in the time of 2024, just before Christmas 2024.
Okay.
And this is a small issue that keeps being that everybody fails to mention, over and above all the offers that they've been given by the Canada Post Corporation that they refused, and now they're looking for even more. And I think that, we've just been given the news yesterday that they've already experienced another $407 million third quarter loss.
That's right.
And which is just expected to balloon to probably another $1.2 billion loss for the entire year. And I think that when it comes to people that are struggling for a living, I think that these union members would do well to appreciate what they have and appreciate what they've been offered and stuff. Yeah. And, a comparison to what the rest of the country and some people are struggling with, that it's time to put this nonsense to bed and put the postal and settle this strike. And the people in this country deserve the services that they're entitled to, because this corporation is, in the end, owned by the taxpayers of this country. That's all I have to say, sir. Have a good long weekend.
It's very well said. You know, it really puts things in perspective. I was doing some of my own math the other day. Grown men cry when I do math. I mean, Canada Post is losing $4.5 million a day, every day, today, tomorrow, Monday, when they're back open for business. $4.5 million. It's different than the Air Canada situation. You know, Air Canada, very profitable airline. This thing is bust. Yeah, very good. Really interesting. Thank you. I'm glad we could fit you in today. Dan Veer, you're going to have to make it quick today, Dan Veer. 1 minute or less. That's it. That's all we have for you.
Okay, so if we want to make it quick, I just want to say, we do all the research, but the people who are never counted are the self-employed people. So there is need to be a government policies to have the different kinds of businesses segregated so that they can be taken care of appropriately. Like small business, small manufacturing units separate, medium separate, bigger separate. A store like a dollar store or it's different than a manufacturing unit. It's different than a restaurant. And we have one ministry for small business, and that's it.
Okay. Well said, Dan Veer. Thank you. Yep. Point well taken. Well, that was a busy a couple of hours on Talkback. The cost of living. Such an important topic. It's so top of mind for everybody. Tomorrow's Friday, so it'll be the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hope you'll join us then, and we'll be more than happy to take our cue from you, and you pick a topic and we'll roll with it. That's what we do on Fridays. It's a very busy news day. We're going to bring you right up to date. Coming up next, I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.